Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. It's just me talking to you in this segment because I'm furious. I'm furious at the governor of New Mexico, who on her own last week signed a decree prohibiting carrying weapons, carrying guns, carrying licensed, registered guns. That is, the gun is registered and you have a license to carry in the city of Albuquerque. Now, I'm not the only one that's upset. The local police are upset and refuse to enforce the law because they know that where there are more guns, there's less crime. And the local county sheriff refuses to enforce the law because he knows what the Supreme Court has ruled. My column this week, which I just finished writing, even though it comes out on Wednesday evenings, Thursday mornings, asks if the government can curtail personal liberty. And the short answer is no, the government can't do it. The governor can't do it, and the legislature can't do it. The legislature, which writes the laws, and the governor, which enforces the laws, have distinct job responsibilities. It's called the separation of powers. The governor can't write a law. The government can only enforce a law that the legislature has written. Moreover, the Supreme Court of the United States has made it very clear. The right to carry a gun is a natural right. It comes from our humanity. It doesn't come from the government. How are these laws to be interpreted? They're to be interpreted as they were, as was the public understanding of them in 1791 when the Second Amendment was ratified. That's not me. That's the Supreme Court of the United States just a year and a half ago, when it invalidated laws in the more liberal states, of which New Mexico is one, notwithstanding its location in the Southwest, that tried to make it more difficult to keep and bear arms. The Supreme Court Justice Scalia in 2008, an opinion called Heller versus the District of Columbia, and again in 2011, an opinion called Bruin versus the Rifle Club of the State of New York, Justice Clarence Thomas, have made a couple things clear. The right to own a gun and carry a gun is a personal individual right. It doesn't belong to the government. It doesn't belong to the militia. It doesn't belong to the National Guard. It belongs to each individual. And it's a pre-political right, meaning the right existed before the government did. Well, if the right existed before the government did, where did it come from? It comes from the source of all human rights, our humanity. The right to keep and bear arms is a natural modern-day extension of the right to self-defense. And Justice Scalia says the right to self-defense enables you to use the same modern-day means that the bad guys do and that the government does. For what? To protect life, liberty, and property from the bad guys and from tyrants. Well, there is a tyrant in New Mexico. She claims she can invalidate a personal right. Here she is being interviewed about the New Mexico Constitution. Forget if it's CNN or MSNBC. We'll identify them properly, whichever one it is, but you'll see her trying to skirt around what the New Mexico Constitution, that she's sworn an oath to uphold, tells her she can and cannot do.
The New Mexico Constitution, I looked last night, Article 2, Section 6 says this, quote, no law shall abridge the right of citizens to keep and bear arms for security and defense. No municipality or county shall regulate in any way any incident of the right to keep and bear arms. Are you not in violation of both the U.S. Constitution and your state's Constitution?
I don't believe that we are. And if that narrow reading of the Constitution, which has been tested in the state, we wouldn't have universal background checks. We wouldn't have a waiting period. We wouldn't have a red flag law. We wouldn't have prohibitions for straw purchases. None of those would have been deemed constitutional. And today, all of them are.
They were before
These
the Supreme Court
absolute right
ruled
discussions. Fair, but they haven't been tested again.
Boy, is she misleading the public. All of those restrictions on the right to keep and bear arms, as the reporter for CNN properly noted, came down before the Supreme Court's opinion a year and a half ago that said the standard today, the values today, must be the same as the standard and the values as were the original public understanding in 1791. And each one of those things she ticked off was done by the legislature, which writes the laws in New Mexico and everywhere in the U.S., not by the governor. So the reporter pressed her again and asked her if she was on solid constitutional ground. And then the reporter ran a clip from another reporter asking her if she thought that the criminals would obey her decree. Watch this.
You're an attorney. Do you think you're on solid constitutional ground here?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, look, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I had the right. I have the right.
Where is the right? Where is the right?
In the state of New Mexico. Public health, it's a suspension. It's not a ban.
I want to play for people an exchange you had with a journalist at your press conference last week. Here it was.
Do you really think that criminals are going to hear this message and not carry a gun in Albuquerque on the streets for 30 days?
No.
You said no. Are you going to keep doing this? 30 days, take it up to the Supreme Court? Or is this about a statement right now?
No, listen, I can make any number of statements and already have.
So she really doesn't know what she's talking about, even though she is a lawyer. She really is not faithful to the New Mexico Constitution, even though she took an oath to uphold it. She's really not faithful to the United States Constitution, even though she took an oath to uphold it. She is either ignorant of how the Supreme Court has interpreted the Second Amendment in the Heller case in 2008 or the Bruin case in 2011. She's just a big government person that thinks the government can keep you safe and wants to deny you, if you live, work, reside, or happen to be in Albuquerque, a fundamental liberty that the Supreme Court has says comes from your humanity doesn't come from the government. My column is called, Can the Government Cut Off Personal Liberty? You'll be able to see it all over the place, starting in the Washington Times, WashingtonTimes.com and townhall.com tomorrow afternoon. There needs to be a reaction, a strong reaction on the part of the public when somebody in the government decides to trample individual liberties. This didn't happen after a great debate. This wasn't the people's representatives. This is the governor thinking that she can write laws and somehow she has emergency powers. There are no emergency exceptions to the Bill of Rights. That's not me. That's the Supreme Court of the United States. She'll eventually be stopped. A federal judge will interfere with this. If it goes all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States will surely interfere with it. But that's not a good enough answer. This governor took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Same oath I did. In my case, it was also for the Constitution of the state of New Jersey. In her case, it's the Constitution of the state of New Mexico. But the language is clear. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The Supreme Court interpretations are clear. What did that mean in 1791? In 1791, you could carry a gun in Albuquerque and no governor could stop you. Help us spread the message. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends. Judge Napolitano on a solo with no guest for Judging Freedom.